You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, I want to thank everyone for listening. We get such great feedback on these episodes, and to help encourage other people to listen to this, please comment, please share, please subscribe on any platform that you're listening to, whether you're on iTunes or YouTube or however you're listening to this. We're really trying to provide great content to the roofing community, and that helps get some reach in these episodes. Today we're gonna have another interesting discussion about getting paid what you deserve per job, right? And that's a big big thing for your business, right? If you're not collecting the revenue that you need to succeed, right, you're not going to. So there are a lot of different ways to do that, and it's going to be a little bit different on the retail side, on the insurance restoration side, but today we're talking with Garrett Kurtt, and he's an all-around expert in the property restoration industry, and has seen and done it all over the past 12 years. He's the founder and CEO of EcoBlast Claims, High Impact Roofing, and most recently One Click Code. He's a licensed adjuster and a contractor with over 3,500 claims under his belt, a certified appraiser with 500 appraisals to his name. And One Click Code is some technology that's really disrupting the industry. So we're really happy to have him on here today to talk about that and really to dig into what you need to really, get paid what you deserve on your claims. So welcome, Garrett. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So a little bit more background. You're the CEO of EcoBlast Claims, High Impact Roofing, One Click Code. So obviously you have a little bit of time to spare, right? You get so.
Yeah, I wish I did. It hasn't been I haven't been afforded as much time as I'd like, but I've been quite busy over the last 12 years for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And so what what is for everyone, give us a little bit of kind of a background on yourself and how you kind of got into the roofing space and roofing industry and started growing these companies that you have. Sure.
It was 12 years ago, 2008. I stumbled across it. I think that's a similar story to a lot of us in the industry, specifically in roofing and insurance restoration. We kind of stumble across it. I got in 2008. There was a massive flood that came through Iowa. I just happened to be in the power washing industry. So I had all the commercial equipment that was needed. I didn't quite understand how that would be able to facilitate my ability to help property owners in a damaged area such as flood. But it ended up working. It was a hometown of my grandparents, and they gave me a lot of support. They also directed me to a lot of their friends and family that were devastated by the floods. That's how I got my start. And from there, I thought, hey, this is an amazing industry. Never knew about it, but I thought, okay, what's the next step? And Hurricane Ike hit Houston, Texas. And I said to myself, great, I can go down there and do the flood work that I just finished in Iowa. I'll be able to do the same thing down in Texas. Turns out that Texas doesn't have basements. And I just, naive person from Minnesota didn't realize that there's no basements in Texas. And so there was no flood really for us to clean up. And so I shifted to roofing. So 2008, I shifted to roofing, and I'm grateful I did. I think that was the start of ultimately where I am today. I'm not an overnight success, but the last 12 years have gotten me to the point where I have the experience of doing 3,500 plus roofs, claims to be exact, and also doing a lot of appraisal work. So as I did roofs and as I was going across the country, I realized that there was a large problem of people are not being able to get paid what they ultimately deserve. There's softwares out there to help you estimate. There's industry accepted practices to calculate those costs, but ultimately in the end, it's about getting paid what you deserve. And to dig a little bit deeper, I found out that building codes were a primary factor in a lot of places across the country. It was a driver of both cost of materials and labor, and it was one of the larger disputes, that and manufacturer specifications. So throughout the last 12 years, I kept on hitting my head against the wall trying to explain to each individual adjuster why building codes were important and why the cost in my estimate is what it is due to those increased costs due to code. And I kept on doing it over and over again. I think the short version is that if you have to do something more than once, or you expect a different result after 3 times, it's insanity. And that's what I felt like. I was going insane. And so I decided that it was a better way. And so I sought after a goal to be able to identify building codes across the country, and to go a step further, to be able to identify jurisdiction, meaning an address, being able to understand where do you go to get a permit. And that's the background. That's where I got to today. And we're having a lot of fun doing what we're doing. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem. And so what do you think the biggest mistakes are that contractors run into, in this regard around building codes and jurisdictional authority and things like that?
So from my personal experience, this is something that I've learned over and over again. And ultimately, I thought it was just all about building codes. So I'm in the Denver metro area, and it turns out that the cities and counties all have different building codes. So what I would do is I'd pride myself in saying, oh, that city has this code and this county has this code. As I'm going through that process, what I kept on running into is jurisdictional issues, meaning, an address is assigned to a property anywhere in the country, and that's for mail purposes, not for jurisdiction of where you need to get a permit. It's what we found based on our research is that 40% of the properties fall outside of the city name listed in the address. That's jurisdiction issues. So if you're in the middle of a cornfield and it's an address that says Greenville, North Carolina, that you're not actually in Greenville, you're actually probably in the county. And so therefore you're going to go underneath the county codes. But in the city and metropolitan areas, those lines are invisible. You can't really see them. You'll cross different cities and county boundaries and it will seem like it's seamless. But ultimately those codes could be different across the road, and that can impact costs. And so jurisdiction is a major issue that people don't really quite fully grasp. And then the roofing codes that go with it, they differ. Ultimately, those are drivers of line items within an estimate. That's how you get properly paid for the work you do. And like a little misnomer that people aren't quite familiar with, they know about, but they don't really narrow it down, is sales tax. And ultimately, sales tax differs not based on zip code. It's not necessarily based on county or city. It's based on address specific, like location of where that falls within the tax jurisdiction. Some cities have multiple they have multiple zip codes, but they also have multiple tax rates in a single city. So we do something similar to that, but ultimately that's still the same problem. Trying to, it's really the problems that exist with the industry of getting paid properly.
Definitely. So let's start with talking about roofing codes, right? And understanding roofing codes. What do you think that people miss most often in looking up the right roofing codes for their job?
So I think off the initial hop, unless you have like a mentor or you're looking at an adjuster or someone that's actually educating you along the way, you're not going to get what you don't know, or you're not going to look for what you don't know. I mean, but the top ones are going to be your drip edge, your ice and water shield, your valley liner, your ventilation. Decking could be in there too, depending on where you are and how old the house is. But those are the things that you're going to be looking for, and they differ a lot of times based on the jurisdiction, based on the city or the county. And it's a driver of that cost. And so, you can go do the research, you can call them up, but today's, a lot of these places are closed. You have to email them. And then you don't know if that person really has authority to give you the correct information. And if they do have the authority, they may not be willing to put that in writing for you. Yes. And so the quagmire is like, do you really have to do it if they're not really enforcing it? That gets into another whole stem of issues that come up. But ultimately the answer is yes, you still need to do it. Even if they're not enforcing it, it's still a code requirement. It's still something you need to do.
And this is definitely, we're, along the lines in the, insurance restoration side and in, getting what you deserve out of the claim and help it, supplementing the insurance claim and things like that. But this is also for the retail side too, right? It's knowing, and being able to explain to the homeowner, hey, these are the things that we have to do. And you're, because you're in this jurisdiction, we have to do these things. And if this other contractor is telling you that they're going to leave, that you don't need drip edge, right? Like you being able to expertly explain that, be the expert and explain that to the homeowner, will increase your credibility and your ability to sell that product too. So, and so with those roofing codes, understanding exactly what is needed by the roofing code. Now that ties into the jurisdiction. And I know, I understand what you're talking about in jurisdiction. I grew up, part of my life, I grew up in Sacramento, California, in an area of town called Rosemont. Rosemont was an unincorporated area. It is in the Sacramento City Police Department didn't come to Rosemont. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Department came to Rosemont. The way the schools were and everything was all based around Sacramento County, not Sacramento City. So that makes perfect sense to me how that happens, but I can see how it gets missed because you're just driving across a street sometimes, right? And all of a sudden it's different. Or out in Denver, I did a lot of real estate investing out in Denver, and there's unincorporated Adams County, right? There's a lot of areas in the Denver metro area, North Glen and certain cities in the northern part of Denver there that, you may be in the city of Thornton here, but then you're in unincorporated Adams County across the street. So, can you explain more about how those judicial authorities kind of, I guess, where to find and how to understand what jurisdictional authority you're under while performing, doing the work on that, doing the build on that roof?
Yeah. So what we have done in the past, the manual way, is to call up the county first and ask them, is this in your county? And that would probably be a yes. And then you would say, hey, do I pull a permit with you guys? They would say no. Then you could then default to the city and then call the city, confirm that's the city. Now, what we found though, there's a certain percentage of time that actually it's not even in that city that's listed. And so you would then drill down to a nearby city. Google does help a little bit with being able to give you boundaries around a city and county. Yeah. However, they don't have the updated versions of that. So if it's a newer development in the last 4 to 5 years, they may not have the updated boundaries. There's also annexation that goes on within the cities and counties. So the easiest way is to call the cities and counties. That would be how the old manual way be. And that's kind of where we wanted to automate it ourselves because we thought there was a better way to do it. But that is the way to do it right now. That was the way to do it before, I should say.
Yep. And in that now, what does that kind of lead us to? Now you found the correct roofing codes for that specific property, through finding the right jurisdiction. What does that lead to next?
So, being able to research and be able to confirm it. Sometimes you've already called that city, like, I know it, this is what's going on. Now, building codes do change sometimes once a year. I've known that after certain events, sometimes they'll change it every 6 months, depending on what goes on. So you never really quite know. So you always want to double check, and then your memory may not always be there. Like, last time I called 3 months ago was this. And in the back of your mind was, is it still the same? So you still need to verify that it's still the same. And then verify the key components, the decking, the ice and water shield, the drip edge, the valley liner. Can you roof over multiple layers? All these things come up. Is the repair versus replace? Is there a 25% repair limitation, so you can only repair so much of the roof before you have to replace the entire roof? Is a permit being required? What that permit cost is? All those things go into that research. It takes time, and that goes into building out your estimate. That goes into identifying the line items that would then ultimately be transitioned into, here's what I'm going to be charging the homeowner, and this is what I need to do, and creating that trust and that credibility, but at the same time being competitive, right? So you don't want to like charge a bunch of money because it's not competitive. You don't want to charge a little bit of money because it's not competitive. It's not profitable, right? So creating the credibility and creating the profitability as well as being competitive at the same time.
Yeah, and creating the right, it's just the right thing, right? It's not like you're making things up, right? This is, now you're actually doing exactly what is necessary by the local jurisdiction that's required by code in that jurisdiction to get to that, and being able to line item that out in that way. Now, another thing that you talked about, I mean, a lot of this leads into profitability. Some of that is in permitting, right? I know, if you're doing 50 roofs a year and you eat those permit fees, that's one thing. But if you start doing 400, 500 roofs a year and you're starting to eat permit fees and different things because you're not sure, you didn't line item it out properly, or you have to, eat the cost on drip edge because you didn't line item it out properly, whatever it is, that
Right.
Those are the most important things in there. But then also that sales tax, because sales tax is, you don't want to, that's a whole nother, part that needs to be, thought of and made sure that it's conveyed in the proper way.
Yeah. So I think to create credibility, you want to be able to say, here's what the permit fee is going to cost, right? And it's not going to be overage, it's not going to be under. And this is the sales taxes so that you can actually be competitive and profitable. Sales tax could differ just by being in certain areas, depending on the state, right? So it's state-based, and then it goes down to the county and city. But there are some areas, I'd say more than half of the country, where you could be on one side of the street, it's 4%, and the other side of the street, it's 8.5%. That could be, depending on the roof, could be about $100 to $200. Now that doesn't seem like a lot of money in the scheme of things of a $15,000 or $10,000 roof, but that's still a lot of money. That's a couple of steak dinners. And then you add the permit on top, where the permit in the county could be $45 and the city permit fee could be $400. Now, you're probably going to figure that out pretty quickly and make that mistake once or twice. But to get that really quickly and to do that research so you can be accurate, but then also be able to relay that information to the homeowner saying, I am accurate, I am trustworthy, this is why my price is what it is, to create that credibility with them is super important. And to be knowledgeable. I think my ability when I was in the sale, I still sell, roofs too, not very often, but every once in a while I'll get out there and sell a roof. My primary thing is the code software. But if I was out there, I am always someone that's going to be selling based on a technical ability. So I'm going to come from I sell really well to engineers. Other people don't sell well to those guys or the gals. Like I sell pretty well to them because I'm very technical to them and I'm very detail oriented. That comes across usually as being credible. And the more credible you can be, which means the more information you have to be able at your disposal to be able to explain to them, the more trustworthy you are and the more likelihood you're going to get paid what you ultimately deserve and get the job.
And get the job, right? Yeah. So, and making sure that you're getting paid that. And what are some what is a time that an example that you've seen that you've come across where it maybe not having that information has really led to a less than profitable job?
Yeah, I think it comes in two things. Like if a homeowner, if you don't do something right, they could always use that as a way to discount the price. You missed something, maybe the building code didn't find it, but they missed something on manufacturer specs. They could hold some money back on you, and that's not great. They could hold the money back on a long period of time until the inspector comes out, which could be, depending on where you're at, could be weeks or months. But I mean, those things come up, and that's problematic. And an example for me would be 4 years ago, there was a job down in a southern city, and I didn't realize that they required, and I soon found out that, and this is before I started the software, is that they all required you to remove the felt down to the deck. In this particular area, they were actually inspecting for the felt to be removed. And we did not remove, well, I should say the crew didn't remove. I was under the impression they would be removing it. They didn't remove it. And we failed the mid-roof inspection because the felt was not removed down to the deck. Now, we caught that before we put the roof on. But if you put the roof on, what's the remedy to fix that? Replace the entire roof. That would have been a very expensive mistake. And this is not unique to some places in Colorado. I've heard about places across the country where they're starting to enforce that because they really want to have a complete and like, have the homeowner have the best roofing possible
Yes,
according to the manufacturer specs and according to the building code.
definitely. And so in those defects, we're talking about, that could end up, a customer renegotiating with you, declining to pay altogether, right? Like that could be a huge issue for you, right? So making sure that you have the proper information up front to then relay it to the customer, and then to do the build properly. So that also leads to, what you were telling me about earlier is, you know, uh, it helps in closing out all of your claims too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately, if you can get the information as quickly as possible to make the best estimate possible, that estimate can be then converted into a contract, and the contract could be built, and then built could be collected. I mean, there's not a lot of over promising, under delivering, because that's not what you want. You want to under promise and over deliver. And sometimes when you get into pricing, people want to have a price. They're used to it. They go to Amazon, they go to Target. This is the price I pay for something. They don't like surprises. You give them surprises, they get a little squirmish, and I don't blame them. I mean, I would be the same way too. Like, you told me it was 10 grand. Why is it now 12? This is not appropriate. You can't hold me responsible because you're not competent. I trusted you. You're a professional. Get it right.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the end, it's all about helping close those claims out. The more information you have at your fingertips, the more accurate you're going to be in your estimation, the more trustworthy and transparent you're going to be with the homeowner, the more they're going to trust you. The faster the job gets done, the more likelihood they are to pay you, and they're going to pay you 100% of what you ask rather than discount it. And that's ultimately the close the claim out and close it out to the fullest amount that you actually quoted or that you charged.
Yep, definitely. And how does this, I guess, what kind of this also helps a lot in the supplementing process, right? Like, by being able to have that information and convey that information to the adjuster, or whoever, whatever you're working with there.
Mm-hmm.
How can this, I guess, having all of this together in the right way, what are some of the supplementing things that this streamlines the process for supplementing?
So our product, the one-click code product, what we've done is we've streamlined the jurisdiction, which then gives authority. And like, you're like,
Yep.
okay, I know what these codes are. And then we call these building departments twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And we're providing information that is then in a PDF report. Insurance companies want to have documentation. And so on the supplementing side, our report, although it comes up digitally, can be turned into a PDF, and that PDF can be sent directly to the adjuster as a third-party verification of the codes in which they're asking for. And so it can be substituted for going to the city, going to the county, asking for them to give you something in writing. We're becoming the standard within the industry based on insurance companies' adoption of our product. And by doing that, they're actually taking our report, because the contractor is submitting it, and they're actually accepting that for what it is on its face value. And that is a identification of whether ice and water shield, drip edge, and value liner are required on a particular property. And that's how our report can help with supplementing. We can't do everything, but at least on the foundational side, we can help get those items taken care of. And we do plan to do more, but that right there it expedites and allows the contractor and supplementer to then focus on the larger issues, right? Instead of focusing on ice and water shield and spending energy on that, you're focusing on the things that you really want, is like the decking, right? The decking. And they're like, well, what about the ice and water? I'm like, no, let's go back to the decking, right? So you really try to get those things that can be easily identified out of the way, and then you can actually focus on the things that you want to focus on, which ultimately make that job profitable and get paid what you ultimately deserve to get paid.
Yeah, I like that. And that's what it is. Having the right information is always going to lead to that, right? Having the right information to relay is always going to lead to that. And so, you've been in the roofing industry, for many years now. And what are some of the things that you see successful contractors doing versus companies that struggle?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit, but if I could narrow it down to just a couple of key things, I would say that they're proactive, right? Being proactive, and they're being transparent. Like if they screw up, I think one of the key things that I learned, and I've actually been teaching this just in general, just people talking to me, I always say, listen, if I'm in the sales process and I'm going up to a homeowner, I would say to them, I think this is really key, is being transparent. Like if anyone promises you that nothing will happen, everything will go smoothly, be very cautious, because we are in construction. We are replacing your roof. There's 25,000 nails coming off your roof, and there's 25,000 nails going in. There are bound to be nails found at the end of this. We will do our best, but ultimately we'll never promise you to be perfect. We will do our very best. And if anything does happen, we'll be the first to recognize it and fix it. And if someone is not forthcoming about knowing that, then that's not necessarily trustworthy. I think coming at it from that perspective is very trustworthy, and homeowners generally like that, because like, yeah, of course it's construction. Of course there's thousands of nails. Of course there's going to be a problem. Of course you're going to fix it. And of course I trust you to do it. Here's the contract. Let's go.
Definitely. And that trust factor is what you have to overcome a lot of times in the sales process, throughout the process with homeowners, because there are so many, unscrupulous, we'll air quote them, right, contractors out there, right? Yeah. And so that's great advice to pass on to someone. And let's talk a little bit about what one-click code does, and how that kind of streamlines the process here.
Yeah, absolutely. So as someone that's been in the business for 12 years, as someone that's done a lot of these claims and, hit my head against the wall way too many times on the code and manufacturer specs, I realize there's a better way. And ultimately what one-click code specifically, is to be able to be a third-party verification of building codes, and to be able to have a quick reference to create transparency and trust between stakeholders, so contractors, adjusters, and homeowners, to be able to identify components within a roof that should or are required to be in a roof or in an estimate or not, and the documentation or proof to back that up. That's what we've set out to accomplish, and not just for Colorado, but across the United States. And we've been able to successfully cover 99% of the country. And we've now been involved with multiple pilots with major insurance companies. And we're in the process of being in the adoption phase, where insurance companies will be automatically using our product or accepting it if a contractor uses it. And so our goal is to become a standard within the industry, specifically roofing, and expanding from there, is being able to become the standard for building codes and a go-to party to be able to figure out what the trusted data source to be able to make decisions based on an estimate.
I think that when, the way I got in touch with you and when I learned about your software product was just that it's becoming that trusted source. I think that's a big differentiator for what you're talking about, when the insurance company will accept that, right? So you're allowing the contractor, it's getting that information in the right hands quickly. And I think that's an amazing thing that you guys are doing. How can people find you, get a hold of you? How can they kind of check out one-click code and things like that?
So we are on the web, oneclickcode.com, clickcode.com. We're also on iOS and Android, if you search that into the App Store. Right now we have the ability for users to sign up for free. They get 30 days, basically, 20 plus reports that they get to use and be able to supplement or be able to use as part of the sales process. That's how you find us. That's how you use us. And after that, we do have plans both on one state. So if you're a local contractor operating in one state, or if you're a contractor or adjuster working nationally, you can then, obtain codes throughout the entire United States. Awesome.
Thanks, Garrett. Really appreciate your time today. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors: How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.